Hey, hello, and welcome. And sorry for the very long overdue chat and episode, actually. We're going
Yep.
to kind of shorten the opening, we'll call it, and just get right to the task here in just a moment. If Jason has any highs or something he wants to say.
No, just thank you guys for still subscribing to the Agents of Mask channel on YouTube, and we've thought maybe that this announcement for the movie franchise will get us a little kick in the pants to keep the podcast moving forward, and apparently it didn't because it's been a couple months, but we've been mainly focused over there on Rediscover the 80s and doing and podcasts over there, and it's been like that over the years. It's kind of an ebb and flow for me as far as jumping back and forth and finding some mask material to put up on the website, and the stuff to talk about. So I know we'll be getting back into more chats and stuff once like actors and stuff are released, but in the meantime, we'll try to get these out at least once a month to either review an episode or do a chat. How about that, Wyatt?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, well, just to get a little bit of consistency. So, but thank you guys very much for continuing to interact with us. I know I still get some people on Twitter tagging us in some tweets and pictures and all kinds of stuff. There's a really cool animation that somebody came up with for Thunderhawk. So I know there's fans out there, and there's still people who are anxious for the potential of this movie. So we'll be here. We haven't gone anywhere. We just haven't been face to face with YouTube or ear to ear on the podcast. In the meantime, but we'll try to change that.
Yeah.
So without further ado, are you ready to get into the show? And
I
we'll
am.
talk about let me make sure I got this right.
The Royal
Since it
Cape
has been a
Keeper.
while. It's episode number 52, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, let's start the show. Welcome, agents, to MASKast 68 and yet another episode review of the Mobile Armored Strike Command animated series. Coming up on this podcast, we will be looking at episode number 52, Royal Cape Caper. You'll hear our usual play-by-play commentary as well as audio clips mixed in from the actual episode audio. We'll then pause to give our opinions at the dramatic halfway point and also at the conclusion of the episode, and our 1 to 5 scale rating. And then after our final verdict, we'll give our listeners the floor and announce the results of our online poll, and also read back your reviews posted at our website, agentsofmask.com. The easiest way to participate in these review podcasts is by visiting the website and look in that right-hand column to find the MASKast assignment. Just click on the picture and you'll be taken right to the article, and it'll have the embedded video and also our poll right there once you're done watching that. And you can also leave your comments right there. Oh, crap. I didn't update this. Oh, I still have Dragonfire in here. Royal Cape Caper was originally broadcast on December 10th, maybe 11th, 1985 in the U.S. and features Venom stealing the cape and helmet of Kamehameha the Great in Hawaii. They then mass-produce replicas, selling them as expensive fakes. It's up to the M.A.S.K team to stop Mayhem's plundering and deception. I'm Jason, one of your hosts of MASKast, and with me, as always, is my longtime friend and fellow co-host, the skull face to my screaming Mimi. Wyatt, are you feeling a little bit angry?
I'm very angry indeed. Must be something about Metal Gear or something. I don't know.
Nope. Are you feeling mad, perhaps?
I never watched Mad.
Not mad, not mad.
Mad Max.
Mad balls. Mad balls. Skullface and Screaming Mimi. Here, I got
Oh,
one right
great
here
thing.
for you to show you. The Mad Balls. These
I
were
vaguely
little.
remember them things. Man, those were ugly things too.
This is actually one of the newer ones. Uh, I had some of the ones back in the day, back in the 80s. If you're a baseball player or like sports or just like throwing a ball around the house, you pick those up and they're, pretty ugly ball to have around. And they did actually produce 2 animated specials for Mad Balls back in the day. They were direct to video. I don't think they were ever broadcast, but I remember watching. I made it through, I think, one of them over there on YouTube, and they're actually on our list for. I put on our list for Rediscover the '80s to review, but I don't think it really stuck with me as far as the the animated specials. But I don't know. I don't know what it is about them. I guess it was because I played Little League Baseball and I love baseball that I had a few Mad Balls laying around the house. So you don't ever remember having those or seeing them in stores?
I remember seeing them, but I knew I never really wanted them. So I guess that's why I completely forgot who the heck they were.
Well, they had some pretty fun names. The original series, like I said, they had Screamin' Mimi, who was the baseball. You had Skullface, which was obviously like a human skull. You had Oculus Orbis, who was an eyeball. You had Dustbrain, which was like a mummy. Hornhead, Bashbrain, which was like a zombie. And then Arg was one. It was like a Frankenstein type monster. And Slobulus, he had like one eye coming out of his socket. And then they did make some other ones, and just I think it was in 20. What year is this? 2016, I think, is when they started remaking them. They redid most of the characters, kept the same names, and they did the large size like I was showing you, and then there's a mini size as well.
Hmm.
And I've collected a lot of those. I've went on. They have an app, like a game app, and you can actually win real prizes through there. So I've got like a ton of sticker sheets, and I've actually won some of the little mini Mad Balls through the app. So go check that out if you're any at all a fan of Mad Balls. And I also got some comics too. They did make, I think, 3 or 4 comics a couple years ago when they were making the push to bring them back. And those had some pretty cool artwork. But yeah, Mad Balls. Why not? we're getting thin on these. You know what I'm saying? I'm having to really dig deep. We've done pretty much everything that we know from the 80s.
Pretty much. I think we might have to just come out with our own 80 mashup, something or other.
You just can it.
Well,
Anyway,
you did even say here just recently, you kind of pushed the threshold, as it were, from the 80s, put a few feelers out, and have broadened your horizons, we'll call it, and are
true.
into the early 90s now. Because some of it seemed to really flow over uh, there in the early 90s, and I get why
Yeah.
you did it, but I'm one of those that's, I guess it's the black and white in me, 80s,
Yeah.
90s, 80s. So
Well,
you can
that
elaborate
was
on that a little bit.
yeah, and we don't really have any limitations as far as this show goes, other than we're outside of the mask world when we start, this little
Very true.
intro. But yeah, I mean, you think about G.I. Joe even went into the late 80s, and it's been remade. There were some other shows in the 90s and even I think the 2000s. But there's a lot of those properties that carried through the 80s, had some release in the early 90s. And it was mainly why I did that was mainly because the early 90s were our high school years. So we were still, at home, and it was still at that point where we weren't, I would say, quote unquote, our college or adult years. So
Right.
that's why I kind of wanted to include that as well on Rediscover the 80s. But that's another topic for another day. But yeah, maybe I'll look into some cartoon shows or something in the early 90s we can chat about, see if we can remember.
All right.
Yeah. So, well, let's go ahead and get our mask on. And well, obviously the main news for Mask fans has been that
You broke up
announcement.
there again. Try it
I
again.
did. Okay.
Start with the main news.
Well, the main news for Mask fans is obviously the film franchise announcement that we discussed on our last podcast with Mike Quackenbush. Just go check that out. You can hear basically our speculation on the whole take, and as far as when we think the movie's going to hit, and maybe some of the other peripheral stuff that could happen through Mask, maybe a new cartoon series, a video game. We talked about some great stuff like that. So go check out that previous podcast. And there really hasn't been, it's been I don't know, like I said, a couple months since we recorded, and nothing is really broken as far as the movie goes. We're still waiting. I'm guessing probably the next thing is going to be like they're going to sign on an actor, or we've got the director, maybe a studio producer, somebody else that'll behind the creative team, and maybe we'll get the lead actor, for the movie next. But who knows when that can be, because I think we all agree it's going to be at least 2020, which is still a year and a half away. So, it might be towards the end of this year. It could be early next year before we get any more news about that. So just keep your fingers crossed. And, obviously we're going to put it up there as soon as we find something. We'll probably jump on the podcast too, if anything else breaks. But I did a little bit of digging. It wasn't really, anything that major, because I saw somebody else post a little, it was a little slideshow presentation from 2017 from Hasbro. But I just happened to go over there on their site. I like to do that from time to time, especially when they have their investor, quarterly investor like podcast or meetings that they'll do online, and then they'll post the audio, and I like to listen to those sometimes. But I noticed they had their new investor presentation up, and the M.A.S.K logo had changed. It had changed from the traditional, rhino above, and I don't know if we ever determined what exactly the M.A.S.K is below. It's kind of a cross between Spectrum and Ultra Flash.
Right.
It's got that other M.A.S.K on the bottom, and then it says, in bright yellow, the name of the show. And then in the new presentation, it's basically the same one that they've been doing for years. And we reported this several years ago, seeing M.A.S.K labeled as a new brand for Hasbro in these presentations. And the M.A.S.K logo itself has changed from the traditional logo to this, like, it's a new font, and it's like silver, a silver color with like a black shadow effect. And one of the presentations I saw, it did have in small letters the full name of, Mobile Armored Strike Command underneath. The other one didn't. But I don't know. I thought that was significant. Is this going to be their new logo going forward? It could be. Or is this just a placeholder until they finalize, what they're going to do as far as merchandise goes once the movie pushes forward? So I don't know. What did you think of the logo?
Well, I know that like anything else, they got to freshen up an image, right? When you buy a property, when you buy something, it's like you don't want to carry over the past. Whether we fans want the past is another story, but you got to freshen it up. I guess it's just like anything marketing. You got to freshen up the look every couple of years. So
Yeah.
initially, of course, I was a little upset because they changed our logo. But again, you got to look at it from their marketing. They're going to freshen up. We all know that they're going to change the vehicles in some form or fashion. It won't. It may or may not be an '80s IROC Z. It's probably going to be some. I would hope at least a Camaro. But
Yeah.
I guess it could be anything. Like we've been spoofing, or we've seen people spoofing with different cars throughout I'd say the last year, maybe two, that I've seen come
Mhm.
across. Um, I was taken aback because we know it's an acronym, but I didn't see the periods anywhere in between. I didn't even see that font until I read your article, and it's you can very faintly see that it's etched out. So maybe
Mhm.
it's the new style of acronyms where we don't put periods anymore. It's it is what it is.
Well, the original logo didn't have periods, if I do remember right. It just has the letters, and maybe there were some variations of the original logo that added the periods, but I don't think it was in there. So I'm not really. I don't know. That really doesn't bother me as much as it's just kind of bland. It's like I don't know. Mask has that really bright yellow. There's the red of rhino in there and black. I mean, those are the primary colors.
I
And
guess you're right. I always assumed there was a periods in there.
mm-mm. No,
So
because somebody else had mentioned that too. As I posted that article, and I was like, well, I don't. The original one didn't have it either, so I don't think that's a huge deal. And like I said, it just lacks needs some color, needs some brighten it up a little bit, add a little bit of red in there and yellow to it as well. I mean, I don't mind. I kind of like the font. It's more of that kind of machine or metallic style, which would fit in with a vehicle or something mechanical. So I don't. Yeah, I'm not too big on that. It's just the colors were kind of generic to me. But again, who knows if this is the actual real logo they're going to use moving forward. So it could be just something that, let's come up with something new just so people know that we're working on something or something new is coming.
right, right.
Because they've had like I said, they've had that old mask logo in that presentation for several years. And there's some people probably looking at it like going, okay, so this is a new property. Why has it been in here for 3 years and looks the same?
That's it.
Could just be some executive saying that. Let's change it up so it looks new. Um, anyway, but that's pretty much all I've posted online. I did want to remind everybody. I'm not sure how you're listening to the podcast, but if you do have iHeartRadio, if you use the Blueberry or the Player FM apps, we're also on there now. And Wyatt's even tested it on Alexa, haven't you?
I have. It's you have to fumble with the code. So
Mm-hmm.
like rediscover the '80s by itself will not pop up. Not even RD '80s for our podcast. Memory jogger will. Um, Agents of Mask will pop up. It'll pop up the latest episode. But if you say AOM, it won't go anywhere.
Yeah. What about MASKast? Have you tried that?
I haven't tried that. I think it's because it really can't distinguish the MASKast.
Bird. Yeah. Okay.
It comes up with, I can't remember what it is. I can't remember what it comes up with. It's something stupid. So it's like, well, whenever I say rediscover the 80s or rediscover the 80s podcast, it'll pop up and say, here's an all 80s station.
Okay.
It's close. You get it, but no.
Well, we might have to work on that. On another local radio station, which is an iHeart radio station, you say, play whatever on iHeart Radio, and then it'll pull it up. But
Nice.
Anyway, you might want to try that if you got one of those home audio thingy bobbies. I don't know what you call them.
Well, the right name of them is called an Echo, but Alexa's the app. So
yeah,
like
Echo
Siri
and
on
Google.
Apple.
I think it's Google Home.
Yeah,
is the Google one. So you can listen to us on there if you want, while you're doing the dishes or whatever.
that's what
Anyway, I'm just trying to get out the show to perhaps a new audience, and the same for the Rediscover the 80s podcast, to just to broaden our horizons a little bit. And yeah, we are. I mean, just looking at some of the downloads and stuff from after we moved it over to your server there, it's things have been looking up. So thank you everybody for subscribing. And if you've got one of those players or one of those devices you want to try us out there, go for it. And hopefully you'll pick us up and not some random, podcast about actual masks or something. Anyway, well, I think have reached the end of Get Your Mask On. Are you ready to go to Hawaii?
I'm ready to start the MASKast. We fade up on a tribal party. Looks like a hula dance. I wasn't quite sure if it was Hawaii at the time, but I figured it out afterwards. With Scott joking with T-Bob that it looks like he's square dancing. He turns and jokes with Hondo that he can't get the statue to say cheese. Hondo, jeez. Sorry, I'm right down in my cave and I hear like a downpour outside right now. Hondo replies that he wants a picture of the cape and helmet that Kapaya, I can't remember the name now. It's been a couple minutes. Kapaya Maya wore 150 years ago. Kamehameha.
Kamehameha. Yeah.
I didn't know how to type that. I really apologize.
I didn't either. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
But T-Bob quips that he could stuff a nice pillow with them, with Hondo agreeing, but states they are made from extremely rare bird feathers. As Hondo focuses the lenses, which had some great graphics there, the scene is interrupted with the statue being levitated upwards. And here it sounds like T-Bob was supposed to say something, but they edited out as he stammers. To me, it looked like he was trying to say something.
I didn't catch that.
The statue is sent to the night sky with the chief and chiefess bowing, with others aghast. Next, we see it diving, minus the cape and helmet, into the ocean, with everyone looking on at the scene. Next, we fade out of the night picture to a factory with Matt stating they can have pineapple on their ice cream again. Robert states that within 3 weeks the factory will be fully functional, and Matt adds that the residents will have their jobs back. Robert walks out with Matt stating that times have been hard since the plant went out of business. This is where we now cut to Scott.
Yes, and Scott and T-Bob and Hondo run up with Scott yelling for his dad. Matt asks why they were back so soon, and was it any fun? And he asked them if it was something. No, what does he say?
Wasn't the celebration fun?
Yeah. He asked him, wasn't it fun? Hondo says it was fun until someone stole the main attraction, the cape and helmet. Scott tells him the statue flew in the sky like a bird, And then T-Bob says it dive bombed like a plucked chicken. I actually laughed at that. The owner, Mr. Rothman, says they are priceless. Matt agrees since there aren't many of the OOEE birds left. These
Did they ever
names.
come up with a better name for a dang bird?
Yeah, no offense to the Hawaiian people that might be listening, but if we butcher any of these names, just move along. We're not trying to do it on purpose. So Mr. Rothman says it's a shame, and then says he has to leave to attend some personal business. I bet. Matt tells Hondo he wants to investigate Kamehameha's launching pad, with T-Bob correcting him with crash pad. Then we jump right into the Venom theme, and we descend on this jungle hut. We get a glimpse of the cape and the helmet with Mayhem, Floyd Malloy, and Vanessa Warfield also in the room. Mayhem says the cape and helmet is just what the doctor ordered. Floyd can't believe someone would pay $3 million for a bunch of bird feathers, or Boyd feathers, as he likes to say, just because some duke wore them. Mayhem corrects him. Mayhem corrects the bird brain that Kamehameha was a king, with Vanessa not really caring so long as the money is the same. Mayhem tells her to shut up, and then he's going to go turn some bags of feathers into a bird of paradise for them. And he doesn't want any slip-ups. And then we go to the next day.
Right, with Matt and Hondo, which are investigating the statue's platform, with Matt joking there is nothing out of the ordinary except messed up sandcastles. Hondo replies, ditto, drawing a blank too. The duo are out waiting along the beach, with Scott asking T-Bob if he sees anything. He replies 2-cent crabs and a clam. They'd have better luck in Africa. Scott asks, what do you mean? With T-Bob replying, isn't that where Cape Town is? Ba-dum-bum. T-Bob.
I actually have a LOL moment instead of roll my eyes there. Yep.
I had my roll my eyes moment with that one. Sorry. So T-Bob jokes and hops around, then turns and falls into the water. T-Bob bobs up, yelping for help, saying, a sea monster has him. Scott runs to his aid and saying he doesn't see a monster. T-Bob replies, it's because it's invisible. And Scott is dragged into the water also. He now yells for Dad's help, with Hondo and Matt racing over and carrying them out to the beach. Matt asks if they're all right, with Scott replying that they aren't 20,000 leagues under the sea, if that's what he means. T-Bob replies that it's easy for him to say. The monster didn't mistake him for a flounder flambe. Then Matt notices fishing line wrapped around T-Bob's left leg. Scott replies that the sea monster is a bunch of fishing line. Matt notices that it's more sophisticated, made out of nylon and something else. Matt begins to tug on it and reels up the spear from Kamehameha's statue. Matt surmises that if it were tied to an aircraft, it would explain how Kamehameha flew the coop. Hondo adds that also what may have made the cape flap like wings. Then he ponders who would want it. Matt suggests that the black market wants to dress up in fine feathers. And this is where we cut to Thunderhawk.
Yes, now we're inside Thunderhawk. The onboard computer is scanning through black market art dealers, and it uncovers Robert Rothman, who was the factory owner from the earlier scene. Scott asks, isn't he the one he was doing business with? And Matt says, yes, up until now. Hondo says maybe they should pay him a visit. Matt agrees, the sooner the better, as they drive away. And we get the gullwing doors extending, or at least one of them. and they launch into the sky. And this was kind of a really quick, kind of generic background takeoff. It seemed like recycled footage from something else. I don't know. Didn't really match up to me with where they were. But I don't know. Maybe they were on the beach and maybe that's what they were trying to go for
Probably.
with that. But anyway, would have liked a little more with that launch. Now we're back at Rothman's house with Switchblade and Manta and Vampire parked out front. Rothman grasps the cape and says he now owns something art dealers would be envy with passion over. Floyd says it's his turn to give them something that they are passionate about, the money. And Rothman hands over a briefcase with $3 million, saying they deserve it. Mayhem opens the briefcase and he gives this little smirk. I like this animation here. And he says to Rothman, he got what he deserved too. And then now we head back above in Thunderhawk. Matt and Hondo are now in their flight suits. Quick change there.
Yeah.
Scott and T-Bob are looking out the back window, and Scott wonders at all of the pineapples that are below. T-Bob asks, why are they all covering those bushes? With Scott quickly replying, well, that's how they grow. T-Bob interjects that he thought they grew on pine trees. Get it? Okay, so this was a roll my eyes moment because that was a corny joke, and then everyone laughs in the cockpit, Matt and Hondo there. And I don't know. I felt like this scene could have been deleted altogether or saved for the end or something, but I don't know.
Well, my comment was this had to have been a filler spot. They could have wiped it out completely.
Right. So then we cut back to Venom and Switchblade taking off.
Right, with Vanessa and Floyd also driving off. Then we cut right back to M.A.S.K and Matt saying, "What the Venom?" I almost thought he was going to say something. I was waiting for old Doug to interject something there. Figures with Hondo adding like 10 dimes make $1. Matt calls out defense mode, masks, which is actually pretty cool. We switch right back to Venom. Miles states M.A.S.K is here and instructs battle mode. So now we finally get don't think I've ever heard of battle mode before. Have you?
He has used it sparingly. And it might have been, well, I know Matt has used defense mode, and
right.
I guess it's, battle mode, defense mode for both of them is their terminology. But I have heard that before, but just not, they used it quite a bit in this episode.
Yeah.
Throughout.
I just don't recall it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Matt turns back and informs the duo that he's going to place them in the pineapples for their safety. He cleverly flies into the factory and quickly lands, which happened to be nice animation, especially with the suspension kind of bouncing as they stop. Telling them
the
to
audio
hide
was
behind
good
the equipment.
too.
Yeah, sorry. Anyway, it was a noble idea to fly into the warehouse essentially, but he just basically drew the enemy right there with him, which I just avoided it.
Mm-hmm.
Floyd flies in with Vampire and begins firing buckshot at them, with one turning on one of the processing systems. There's a pause, and then Floyd using buckshot again, with Matt turning to run, and he slips on all the pellets, falling onto the conveyor belt where he seems to be out cold. Watching from their hiding spot, Scott tells T-Bob that Dad's taking 5 at the wrong time. Floyd shoots another round of buckshot at Thunderhawk, with Hondo shooting some blaster at him, causing him to dodge the blast. The duo crawl to Matt on the conveyor belt, and Scott tries to shake his dad awake, saying he wouldn't look good as a can of pineapples. Hondo continues to use blaster to keep Floyd at bay before Vanessa and Manta race in. As he lays out a field of laser blast from the headlights, she loses control of Manta as it slips on the buckshot. I thought that was actually kind of comical. I was
Yeah.
waiting for her to say something, "You lame brain" or something, just whatever.
Yeah.
It ends up bumping into the conveyor belt, jolting the duo off and into the opened hatch of Manta. Hondo watches. Then we cut to Vanessa shaking off the crash. Then she tells Floyd, "Let's go." She's tired of waiting for him. They race out with Hondo trying to talk to Matt. Hondo tries to turn off the system and sees that it is broken from the battle. Matt continues towards the blades, and we are taken to our dramatic commercial break.
That we are.
So, what are you thinking? So,
Yeah, well, this this scene was like a rerun, because there is an episode, I think it was the episode where that Sheik or whoever steals the horses. Can't
yeah,
remember the name of that one. And they're in a barn or something. It might have been a hay baler. Maybe it was outside. But anyway, it's the same ploy where Matt gets knocked out. The one before was a laser blast from Switchblade, who kind of surprised him and shot like the ground in front of him, and Matt goes flying back and bangs his head, and he's on the conveyor belt as the machine kicks on, and then he's going into the hay baler at the break. So I was like, we've kind of seen this before. It was, kind of different where Hondo, he's trying to turn off the machine, and you're not sure exactly how he's going to get up there to stop it. He's got blasters, so he could cut through the the part of the machine or something where the blades were. But anyway, so I was kind of underwhelmed, I guess you'll say, by the drama at the break. The animation was great in the first half. There was a nice little transformation of vampire I noted in this scene when they get out of there right before the break. But I thought there were some really cool scenes, like you mentioned, the camera focusing and just the little things that I like to look for in these episodes, and they were hitting on all gears, I think, in the first half. I like that Venom was engaged early in this episode too.
Yeah.
Like last episode, it was, there was a hint of them, and I think they finally came in like after the break. Or it was later in the first half. But anyway, I thought it had a great pace, and there was a lot of nice back and forth to keep the episode moving along, and it didn't really drag except for that one scene where they're up in Thunderhawk and they're just joking and laughing. That's, like I said, that could have been omitted altogether, but I was kind of surprised that I actually went through my notes. I had more LOLs than RMEs. So I either T-Bob was, I was being generous or trying to see the light in his jokes in this one, but it wasn't bothering me in the first half. And we usually get the battles at the end of the episode, so it was nice to have kind of a mask/vehicle battle, in the first half. So that was much appreciated. And I like part of the mystery has been solved about the, who the art dealer that they found that was, they were doing business with, but there's still a lot more to be resolved, including Scott and T-Bob in the back of Manta, not just Matt, on the conveyor belt. They're riding in the back of Manta towards Venom's hideout at this point. So I like that we get part of it solved, but a good bit is still, we've got to get to the end of the episode to figure out what's going to happen.
Right.
What happened to Mayhem? Was he too worried about losing the cash to stick around and fight? It's just Floyd and Vanessa in this scene, and I was kind of wondering, well, where did Mayhem go? Why wasn't he involved with trying to get in there too, but maybe he just wanted the 3 million and get out of there. You know?
Could be. I mean, well, I mean, I'm overthinking it, but there's some scenes we've seen Switchblade where a helicopter should not even be in those caves back like in the early series. Just why? Why were they bringing that in there?
Yeah.
So maybe they thought this one through and thought, well, how would a helicopter actually get into basically a production or warehouse doors?
True. Yeah. I mean, they did have that, the motorcycle vampire getting in and out of there in jet mode, but that's a lot skinnier too. So
Right.
that could have been part of it. But really the only part of it that I kind of threw me off was up in that scene in Thunderhawk when Scott and T-Bob are looking out the back of Thunderhawk. It's like, I don't know, it looks too square to me, like the window. I was like, are they flying a delivery van, or it, it just didn't kind of match up. And then I mentioned that one little, the Thunderhawk transformation and takeoff was, I don't know, it seemed like recycled footage there, but I didn't mark it down too much. I just went down to 4.5 in the first half. So I just took a half point away, and I was crossing my fingers that they were going to pay it off pretty well in the second half. So what did you think?
Well, like you, I love the animation. You know how I like this to see that they add a little extra to it, like when the brakes and the car is actually bouncing, like you would actually do in a real car. Uh, that was great. Good bit of interaction. We got Venom earlier on in the scene, not what seems to be halfway, three quarters of the way through the episode before we see Venom sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
We also saw that the plot was actually a very quick to come up. Sometimes, like for me, it's like, okay, it's almost to the commercial before we get to the plot. So I like that it was
Yeah.
basically ready access. It was right there. This one wore on me
Mm-hmm.
though. Uh, Perhaps there are birds that are called oo ee ee, but to me that just was so bogus of a name. I'm like, come on, mask writers, you got to come up with something better. Ostriches, something that just does not right. Um, so to me, it was just so made up of a name. That pineapple bush tree scene that wasted 30 seconds. Really? I mean, we've seen them waste time before, but that was wasted. They could have done something. They could have had Miles arguing more or something.
I have a suggestion later in the episode for that.
Okay. Um, then the attempted drop off in the warehouse. I mean, you're drawing them into a building. I could see if you put them out in like the brush or a tree line. I get that, but you're drawing them right into the building. It
Mm-hmm.
just it that rubbed me raw. The animation bumped it up. I'm at a solid 3.5. I can't give it
Wow.
much more. I was at a
Wow.
3. I was
Okay.
at a 3 until I liked the animation there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, you're lower than me then this episode.
I know that's
We'll
a
see
rare.
how it pans. We'll see how it pans out. All right, so we are back to basically the same point where we faded out at those rotating blades, and Matt is getting ever so close to the edge, with Hondo still trying to push that like emergency stop button or whatever button it was on the machine. He finally gives up and he calls for Blaster's laser, and he cuts through an I-beam from like above, and it drops, and he picks it up and throws it into the machine there to stop the blades and I guess the conveyor belt too. But I was like, how safe is it cutting through I beams in the ceiling? Is the roof gonna cave in?
Yeah, really.
It was just kind of an odd way to save him. Like I said, I was thinking he was going to just cut through the machine and catch him or something, but I don't know. I guess you can. I guess there might be a couple spare I beams up there that aren't load bearing. Anyway, so Hondo saves the day. We cut back to Thunderhawk, and Hondo tells Matt that Scott and T-Bob are with Venom, and he immediately asks the onboard computer for the M.A.S.K team. And the computer selects Julio Lopez for his cryptography skills. And I guess because, what did they say? Because his vehicle could also be helpful or something like that.
Capabilities could be helpful.
Okay, that was a little vague. But
Yeah.
anyways, Julio is discussing an x-ray of a boy's arm with his father and tells him it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks and they'll be able to remove the cast. And his watch goes off and he gives the kid is sucking on a lollipop and he gives the father a lollipop too, I guess just to keep him quiet, and he runs out. Next up is Alex Sector for his knowledge of exotic birds, of course, since he's the zoologist. Alex is trying to put a collar on a dog, but it won't let him. So he gets the call on his watch and he just kind of runs off, and the dog picks up the collar with its mouth and he flings it up in the air, and the collar lands perfectly around his neck. So didn't need Alex at all on that one.
I guess not.
And then additional personnel, of course, Honda McLean pre-selected. And Matt approves the personnel. We don't get the assembly command that he normally does. You know, it's usually personnel approved, assemble, move, arm, and strike command. But
I made a
what we got was
this because, okay, just when they fix one mistake, we finally go back to the watch sound, the actual watch. It's not 50 different ways of making a watch sound. It's the original that they started out with. Then they screw it up by not doing assemble, mobile, armor, strike command.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay.
That's my rant.
Well, well, after we get the selection, we fade in on Venom again.
Right, which is Manta is at the scene where we hear it a bit of rumbling as we look at the back end of Manta. Inside, we see Scott attempting to open the hatch, with him asking T-Bob to move to the left. T-Bob complains that he only has 4 arms. A few zaps, and Scott complains, saying, "Careful, do you want to electrocute us?" T-Bob replies, "If it means they can get out of there." So he's willing to short circuit Scott to get out of their predicament. T-Bob uses his robotic hand and seems to simply unlatch the hatch. Exiting, they run to a building and carefully walk along the perimeter and under the opened window, where they then jog to a nearby tree line. Once in the trees, Scott wants to call his dad to ensure he's okay. After turning his head and opening the radio panel, he states that the radio is out and suggests that the cause was when they fell. Scott surmises that they better stay close to Venom, since M.A.S.K will be looking for them, and when they find Venom, they'll find them too. We
Pretty good plan.
I'm sorry?
Pretty good plan.
Yeah, very good plan. We cut to the mansion and we see Thunderhawk, Dragonfly, and a police car outside. Then we go inside, where Matt lectures Brothman that he can cancel any deals they made, as 2 cops are then escorting the man out. Now there's 30 seconds. They could have had the guy going, "Oh, you'll never get away with this," or some stupid thing, and anyway.
Well, my suggestion came right here as well. I was like, oh, there's Alex and Julio. They just kind of happened on scene. Why don't we get a scene with the M.A.S.K plane or something? With them landing and coming up to that house, where Rothman was.
That would make too much sense.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so.
So anyway, Matt then states that the flying cape didn't find a home in Brothman's collection after all. Julio adds that the Hawaiians will be glad to know that their relics are safe. Matt turns to look at the relics and then notices, while turning to Alex, that it is a fake. He notices that the feathers are real, but the stitching is new and not 150 years old. He deduces that Venom made a fake cape for Brothman, took the money, and ran. Alex commits that he couldn't have thought of a nicer guy to swindle.
Mm-hmm.
Matt states that they can find where they found the feathers. Venom may be nearby, obviously. Alex suggests they check the computer to find the nesting ground. And this is where we cut back to Thunderhawk once again.
Right. And the computer shows Wyatt's favorite bird, the OOEE bird, at the south end of the island. And Matt hopes that Scott and T Bob are still part of the flock. Roll my eyes.
Yep.
Back to Venom's hut, the agents are huddled around a table with Malloy folding a cape. Mayhem tells him to take it easy, but Malloy interjects, "It's not the real one," which is just hanging nearby. Mayhem tells him he better be sure because he doesn't want any wrinkles in his plan. Vanessa asks him what's the next step, and Mayhem says to sell another $3 million fake to the governor. And Malloy does the math real quick and says that'll be $6 million that they'll make. Mayhem says, "That's right, Einstein. And when he sells the real one in Europe, they'll make at least $3 million more." So Malloy asks, at this point, with all the money being talked about, if he's going to get his fair cut. And Mayhem responds, his fair cut may be nothing if he continues to ask stupid questions. Scott looks on now. He's basically looking through the window at what's going on inside. And he asks T-Bob if he heard the plan and tells him to get ready to leave. T-Bob kind of questions him about leaving because they might get stranded. Well, Scott shushes him and says he doesn't want Venom to make a luau out of and asks him if he wants Venom to make a luau out of him. That was kind of a roll my eyes joke there. Scott's plan is to keep Venom at their hangout until Dad gets there. Now, yeah, I don't know. I guess Scott's making a lot of assumptions that they're gonna find Venom, and how he didn't really know how they were, where M.A.S.K was or how they were gonna get there to find them. The radio was broken, but obviously, finding the rare bird was kind of easy in the Thunderhawk computer. So I don't know. There's a little bit of disconnect. Well, throughout the second half of the episode where there was a assumption made about information and who knew what and all this. And I'll get into that a little bit later, but this was one of those moments. But anyway, Scott tells T-Bob to follow him as they kind of run off. And we see him lifting the hood of Manta now with T-Bob kind of messing with some wires under there. We then see Scott messing with Vampire. And then we see both of them on top of Switchblade meddling with the propeller. So we know what their plan is. They're kind of messing with the vehicles, and
right.
Which is I don't know. I thought that was fun. It was a fun and kind of good plan to kind of keep Venom parked where they were, so M.A.S.K could find them, even though Scott didn't know how they were going to find them. Anyway, we cut then to a nice conversion of Firefly.
Right. Alex states that they should be getting close to the nesting grounds, with Matt replying that he hopes they didn't fly the coop. We're right back at Venom. They all are getting into their vehicles, with Vanessa and Floyd getting no response. Floyd adding that Vampire's acting like a turkey. We then see Switchblade smoking and only spinning the rotor slowly. Miles yells out to fix their vehicles at once. Cutting back to Thunderhawk, a bleep on the monitor increases as Alex says that they are getting close. Matt adds that they know what it is to migrate. Matt instructs Julio.
Oh my eyes.
Yeah, pretty much. That one was a lame one. Matt instructs Julio.
Okay, wait a second. Okay. Did it seem a little crowded for you in there? You got Matt and Hondo and is riding shotgun, and Alex is kind of leaning forward. I'm like, all right, we've only got two, and I see why they did it. That you only have Thunderhawk and Firefly,
right?
But would have killed them to get Rhino on scene, and give Alex a vehicle to drive and not be stuck in the back seat of Thunderhawk. You know, I could see Scott and T-Bob being back there, but putting an agent back there, I don't know. It makes Thunderhawk look crowded to me.
It is. I mean, a Camaro is not the most comfortable car. It's not meant to be a four-seater.
Right. Anyway.
Yeah.
I'm
so
sorry.
Matt instructs Julio that they are going down and to go into defense mode. We are cutting right back to Venom. It looks like they are ready to leave, with Miles instructing them to meet them on the shore of Hawaii, and they'll contact. I'm sorry,
Oahu.
that one too, and contact the governor from there. Suddenly, Miles turns to see Dragonfly and Thunderhawk and suspects they sabotage their vehicles. He turns to Venom and says, "Battle mode." They all transform. Good animation and the tilting up as we see Manta and Vampire, and they all take to the air. Miles says this is his way of saying aloha, and presses a button on the yoke, which launches a rocket. Matt says it looks like they want to scrimmage as he banks. Julio looks back and says it's time to practice your maneuvers as he shoots a series of laser blasts from the back of Dragonfly. Floyd dodges but is forced to the ground, where he seems to pull off a Rax, being launched off the bike and long enough to run in midair before falling.
That was definitely a Rax moment.
Oh, yeah. That's what I thought. I'm like, where's Rax when you need him here for this scene?
Now, you kind of went through that quick, but there's a couple things, the battle,
Okay.
or even kind of leading up to there, where Mayhem suspects that, you know, M.A.S.K sabotaged their vehicles. Well, if M.A.S.K was there, wouldn't they have just blown them up, you know, destroy the vehicles so they couldn't work at all, instead of just messing with their engines that they'd be able to fix in like 5 minutes? You know, that's what just kind of, I guess, killed me on that one, was how quickly they, you know, he told them to fix the vehicles, and 5 minutes later they're ready to go, you know, without, I don't know. It's like, you know, all Scott and T-Bob could do was disconnect the battery or something. You know, the thing was smoking. We saw it smoking. How can he fix it in 5 minutes?
Right. And all he took off was the rotor blade, so it's not going to smoke. The thing's going to vibrate like all the heck, but it's not going to smoke.
Right. Well, and then you know, usually when Matt says defense mode, we get the masks coming down, or, you know, like the vehicle's converting or something. But that kind of, he says defense mode before, you know, they get into this battle with Venom.
Right.
But nothing happens. They don't get their mask or anything at that point. There was no scene there for them to drop, you know, and onto their heads from Thunderhawk. Or we don't even know how Julio gets his mask, you know, his legs and pull it up and put it on his head or something. Not much room in Firefly. But anyway, that was just a couple of things I pulled out of that scene. But you know, overall, again, we're getting a battle scene here, or at least an interaction before even the end of the episode. So this is number 2 already. You know? Right. And I like the launching, the animation with Mayhem launching the missile at Thunderhawk. There's a great scene where you can see through the sights that Mayhem has in the cockpit, you know, right at Thunderhawk. And then we also got a little bit of knowledge about, you know, we had saw this before. We thought Matt could maneuver Thunderhawk and how he maneuvers it with the steering wheel, where we thought maybe he can push and pull back, you know, like the yoke on an airplane. And this one, he actually spun the wheel, you know,
right,
to bank. So I thought that was fun that we saw him spinning the wheel in the Thunderhawk actually banks. So we know that's how he controls it. We don't, you know, always see that. We see him messing with a lever in the middle of the console too. I think that's usually when he converts it, but I don't know. It's interesting to me how it works.
Because I've seen him throttle it too when he wants to jets. So that's the other tick I've had throughout. If we could do a whole synopsis of it, that middle
Mhm.
stick has 3 functions as far as I can figure out. It's not only the transmission for the car, it's the selector to switch the mode to jet, but it's also the throttle to the jet. So, okay, how many more functions is on there? Is it like up and
And
over,
there's
now
a
we're on jet mode, and up, like reverse and
well,
on a
you got that's the button for the the door lasers
yes,
too,
true
because you
too.
push that to engage those. So it's like a multi-functional lever there. Anyway, sidebar.
Yeah, that's all. Uh,
I don't remember where we're
anyway,
at. Oh, the
Julio,
yeah.
yeah, Julio adds lessons over. He transforms Dragonfly and lands in the jungle near Vampire, and he walks out, and then the animation where he seems to be aware that someone's watching was actually impressive. We then see
Yeah.
Buckshot blast, and this chases Julio away. But that was actually impressive animation that they did right there.
Yeah, it was like a 360-degree rotation.
Mhm.
And yeah, I liked the music there too. It was kind of that suspenseful kind of music. And I was wondering why he got out of the Firefly to begin with. I'd just stay in there and just start shooting lasers back through the jungle. But
Yeah.
he got out and he knew he was around there somewhere, and then he kind of surprised him with the shooting the pellets, and he does that like impressive front flip
Yeah.
to get away from the pellets, which I don't know. That was one thing I wondered too. This is not good or bad, but how what does it feel like to get hit with Buckshot's pellets? I mean, is it like getting hit with a paintball gun, or I mean, does it sting, or is it just more trying to get away from slipping on the things when
Right.
you're walking around? I don't know. I don't know if I'd need to run as much as he did away from those little pellets. But
Well,
anyway,
I know back in the day, this is when I was stationed out at Fort Dix. Another sidebar, sorry, but this is fun. We used to have what was called sim rounds, and there was a little plastic cap loaded with laundry detergent that was dye colored, so it might be like fluorescent yellow or red or whatever. But it was actually mated to an actual shell, so it fit your 9 mil. It fit your well, I think the 9 mil mod is what we had for our M4 rifles and our M9 pistols,
hmm
and that sucker stung like no tomorrow. And our joke used to be pain as a motivator. You will learn. I'll tell you what, people learn because we would tell people to always wear their flak vests. If they had the plates and those ones, wear the plates because this will sting. People would always take them out because the plates are like another 40 pounds of plates that's added to your body. People take them out. Tap, 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 tap. Ow, 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 ow. I'm black and blue, man. It took out half my arm. Well, we told you. I
Where are
got
the
shot by
blades?
that. We did a what we call a blue on blue instructor, basically a game like a half an afternoon. Oh
hmm
gee, I was black and blue all over. And I had my flag vest on. They knew where to shoot. That was the downside. We know where to shoot the stings. Ding ding, inner thigh, ding ding. Oh, anyway, I
Wow.
can only imagine that's what
All right.
has to be what Buckshot nearly felt like, is something like that.
Yeah.
That was
Well,
the
but I mean, they're wearing those big masks too, and I don't know if they really have any padding with the suits, but I would think they just bounce off the masks
right.
anyway.
Anyway, that takes us to where we see Manta and Vanessa.
Right, we're back in the air. Vanessa pulls Manta kind of nose to nose with Thunderhawk now and tells him to try this on for size. And she shoots those 3 missiles from Manta's hood, and they narrowly miss Thunderhawk thanks to some timely maneuvers. Matt then shoots the door lasers back and hits that missile port on the hood, and you see it smoking. And inside, she gets some like electrical buzzing and interference on her dash, and she quickly radios to Mayhem that M.A.S.K put a damper on her cannon and she's a sitting duck. Well, I thought maybe Manta had some more weapons than that, but
So did I.
anyway, Mayhem tells her to leave before they stuff her like a duck. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know there's some, I think her headlights, maybe she's used before, and maybe even some on the wings of Manta.
Doesn't it have a saw blade or something that comes at the front?
It on a couple episodes she has, I think they're on arms.
Yeah.
She might have shot them out as well, but I know that she's had some that are on arms that she could, kind of cut through stuff. But I mean, that wouldn't help you when you're in a dogfight.
No.
In the air, but I don't know. I thought she was a better pilot. She could at least be helpful there, instead of just flying off at this point. But it also told me too that, with her dashboard kind of fizzled out and she's radioing Mayhem, it's not necessarily through the car, it's through the masks that they communicate. So that kind of backs that theory up. Anyway, so she flies off. We're back inside Thunderhawk, and Hondo sees Manta leave and says he's going to go look for Scott and T-Bob, and he essentially parachutes out of Thunderhawk. He parachute deploy, and then we see Floyd still after Julio in the jungle below. And he this time uses the voice command for Buckshot on and shoots more pellets at Julio, and Julio turns around this time and uses Streamer Stickum, quote unquote, from his mask, and it dampers those pellets and they go flying to the ground, essentially weighting them down. This happens a couple times, and then Floyd moves his head to indicate that he's essentially out of pellets, like he's trying to shoot more and it's out. And I like Julio's response here. He's kind of cocky. And kind of mocking him. He says, what's the matter? Lose your bearings? I don't know. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
I just like the way he, kind of put him in his place after he ran out of those stupid little pellets. But now we are essentially from Scott and T-Bob's perspective there in the jungle, who are watching the battle between Floyd and Julio. And Scott asked T-Bob if he saw that. And he says, "Are you kidding me? My eyes were glued to it." And that was a roll my eyes joke, glue, stick them. Anyway, we head right back up to the sky with we get an awesome shot of Thunderhawk and Switchblade kind of crossing paths in midair. And this time Switchblade approaches Thunderhawk from behind, and Mayhem tells M.A.S.K to try to dance your way out of this one. And he fires his lasers from the wings. Again, they miss Thunderhawk, but they strike the hideout hut that that V.E.N.O.M had, and it gets basically engulfed in flames. Well, by this time, then Scott and T-Bob runs up with Scott saying that the fire will burn the cape and the helmet inside, and they have to save it. So they run inside the burning hut. And I thought this was kind of brave for Scott.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's kind of hesitant when the moment comes. But, running into a burning hut, I'm not sure I would do it. But he's shielding his face from the smoke, and he sees the relics, but the smoke is really bothering him. And then we're right back up to Thunderhawk with Alex telling Matt that they better land because the cape and helmet are going to burn up. Well, and this was a disconnect for me. I was like, well, how did they know that that was the hut that Venom was using, and
that's it?
That the cape was inside? They didn't know. I mean, again, there's just a few little moments throughout this episode that kind of disconnect me like that they could have did a better job of, I don't know, somehow. Maybe they spotted Scott and T-Bob running into the hut, and then they, that would be enough to get you to land right then and there. But knowing that the cape and helmet were in there was kind of, I guess, pushing it. But so then we get this nice sweeping maneuver of Thunderhawk coming around, and then a really cool landing sequence too. You could tell this was specific for the episode, and I like the way they did that. And then we get Alex and Matt running up to the hut.
Right. And then Matt says that they need to stop the fire, and then we cut right back over to Julio scaring Floyd up a tree with the streamer stickum running a stream of basically glue up the tree behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Then we see Switchblade hover over, and with a rope line, Floyd hops off, as Miles states that he'll keep M.A.S.K out of his nest as he takes off. Back at the hut, it's now simply smoldering, with Matt saying that the cape and helmet are gone. Then Scott shouts that they are over here as he walks out with the cape, and T-Bob wearing the helmet. Matt sounds astonished, and Scott asks, "How does he look?" Matt takes the mask off and says, "Like a warrior king," and gives him a big hug. T-Bob says that he's the king since he's wearing the crown. And two birds land on his head, and T-Bob asks, "What's with them?" Scott suggests that they recognize a fellow feather brain. They all have a big laugh. And this pushes us into our PSA.
Yes, and we fade up to the Tracker mansion, and T-Bob is picking up some leaves in the yard by doing this. I don't know. I likened it to Wall-E. If you've ever seen Wall-E and the way he, puts his trash in his little drawer there and makes a nice little square to pile up. And this scene, T-Bob is raking up these leaves, and he makes this like hay bale, like small bale with string and everything, and shoots it out his butt, back to Scott. Well, Scott, he's kind of marveling at the invention that they've made, and says that everyone on the block should have one of these, leaf balers. And T-Bob continues to work, and he tells Scott there's only one of him, however, and he doesn't like working overtime much. Just then, Scott spots a neighbor kid about to stick his hand in this like electric mower. And this was, I don't know if this was a thing or not, but it was the old fashioned, push mower with the rotating blades. But it looked like it had a motor and a like electrical cord that it was hooked up to. So it wasn't like it was tethered. So I'm like, how much grass are you going to cut if you can only go the length of the electrical cord?
Right.
I don't know. Maybe that was a thing back in the day, but anyway, Scott tells him to never reach your hand into a running mower. And the boy kind of scratches his head, and Scott tells him that he could lose a finger, and he just kind of freeze frames, and we fade out from our PSA from that point. But anyway, we're at the end now. You were at a 3.5, right?
Yeah.
So how did you round up the second half of the episode, and where did you land your final rating?
I'm still wishy-washy, I'll be honest, because this was just, the transformation was improved. I want to actually applaud that the audio engineer finally stumbled along the long lost archives of the watch alarm soundbite. But kind of seriously, it's been like 40 episodes since we last heard the legit sound. Then they screwed it up by saying no assemble mask command. They had a cool suspense that the radio breaks, and it's up to the duo to keep Venom around, which helps them and their purpose. I like that they fiddled and actually had a wrench on like the propeller and all that. Miles's plan to keep selling fakes for $3 million was actually clever. And like I said, the duo sabotaging Venom vehicles was cool too. I was dismayed by how Dragonfly transformed. I thought it'd be a little bit more, I guess, impressive. I just for my own take. I didn't knock it, or ding it, but it was just I was looking for something more fancy.
that was kind of a tick for me too. I liked the way that they showed it, and the two wings come out and the little hidden laser in the front. The part that kind of bugged me, and like I said, it was more of a tick, was they where was it when it was transforming? Was it on the ground, in the air? And they didn't have the scenes leading up to, like they didn't have like a taking off scene for
Right.
it. They didn't have like a landing sequence for it. You see it converting, and then the next you see it pulling up next to Thunderhawk or whatever on the ground there. And then when we first see it, we cut right to the transformation, and the next scene it's flying beside Matt. So we don't get the animation of, is this transformation, is he getting a boost and then transforming off of the ground somewhere, like they like to do that sometimes, where they find like a ramp, a natural ramp somewhere off a road, and
Right.
they'll gun it, and then they transform in the air. We've seen Gloria do that. She'll
Right.
gun it off of a road and then transform it and go into the water. So we just didn't get that to know where exactly he's doing that. But I don't know. I like the sequence.
The sequence was good. It just like you. It just, I guess I was looking for something more.
Mm-hmm.
We actually had at least two masks used during this battle, which was kind of perplexing. Um, I was actually disappointed by Streamer, the Stickum. I mean, I guess it's a gadget, but I was disappointed. I thought it would be something better.
And it kind of shot out of his chest too. Did you
Yeah,
notice there was like it was like a little nozzle there instead of something out of the actual mask up high, or
right.
you
But if you
know.
think about it, Stiletto doesn't have anything on the mask. It's actually down here on the kind of
True.
chest area too. So I didn't ding it for that. Just glue, really? That's the best you can come up with is glue. Um. Anyway, so um, I did quickly research just for my own, I guess, edification. I did. There was an oo bird back
Mm-hmm.
in the day, but I don't see an ee. So I'm still not happy about how they came up with a name, but at least there was an bird. So they're
Okay.
half right. Um, the we already identified it. Um, we had a little bit more battle, but they kind of ran out early, like always. And there's my note. I said, like we said about earlier, that second defense mode for what? There was no defense. There was no mask
Right.
coming down. Nothing. Um, and then, like we were just talking about with the hut. I mean, how did Mask know that the hut was where Venom sat, let alone where the cape and helmet sat? So,
Yeah.
oh, it's hard for me to move it up. I mean, the animation is what's helping it. I'm really at a 3, but 3.5 because of the animation. I'm so I almost want to go down. I marked it as a 4 on our ratings point. I think I am. I'm sorry. I'm changing it. It's a 3. I just
Oh wow.
there's,
Okay.
there's so many the too much wrong. The animation you got right. Come on. I realize it's 30 some years later, but still seriously, I mean, you had it right. And then you go screwed up by these little tiny disconnects. Anyway, that's my rant and rave. What about yours?
Okay. I was actually teetering the other way. I I was teetering between a 4 and a 4.5. Uh, After having the just a 4.5 at the break, I was like, is there enough to move it down to a 4? And I most of my little you know things that I picked up on, I kind of moved into the tick category instead of something being like bad. You know, I there was a lot to like about this, and the battles themselves were very satisfying, I thought, because we had like three interactions all throughout the episode, which we don't get a lot of, just straight battling back and forth. And one of the things that I was trying to remember was when's the last time we had an all aerial battle throughout the whole episode? So you had, you had Switchblade and Vampire and Manta, all flying vehicles, and then you had Firefly and Thunderhawk. So it was all about in the air this time.
Yes.
And I don't know if we've ever had an episode that was like that before, where there was all just kind of aerial fighting. So I don't know. I thought that was unique, and there was a lot, you could tell there was a lot of details they added in the animation, specific animation for this episode, the targeting, and then just some of the scenes in the cockpit with Mayhem, and then the actual the movement of the planes, and the back and forth. I don't know. I thought the battles were very, very satisfying, probably top notch for what we're looking for, at least what I'm looking for in the episodes. And I just thought I had a very good pace the whole way through. There were some disconnects, like we mentioned, but the episode moved along very good pace. And then there was a lot of back and forth between scenes. And it was kind of cool. Like when they landed Thunderhawk to go rushing into the smoking hut there, and Matt says, we got to find some way to put this fire out. Well, the very next scene you see Julio, and I'm like, oh, so he's going to use the stickum to put the fire out. But no, he's shooting it up the tree at Floyd. So I was like, oh, that was a little, I thought I was going to see what was going to happen next, but they're still, moving back and forth between scenes. So it wasn't very obvious. And then, they ended up putting the fire out, just basically turned to ash. And, that's when we get the end sequence with Scott and T-Bob running up. But I don't know. I just like the way that they moved back and forth in this episode, except for that one scene that was, that I put that in the bad category, where they're up there looking out the back at the pineapples. The defense mode and battle mode terminology, I put that in the good category, because we just don't get that in an episode anymore. Even though that, yeah, they didn't use it. There wasn't any follow up to the command that we were looking for in that one scene. But I don't know. I like that terminology. I like that they're using it a lot in this episode, and it was deserving, because they were battling a lot. In the bad category, I was thinking that this Rothman guy, being an art dealer, even a black market one, he should have known that this was a fake. He should have seen the details and, picked out, especially with something that's one of a kind. You think he'd be a little bit more careful than just offering up $3 million for something that could be a fake. I don't know how well he trusted. Apparently he trusted them a lot, but that was kind of a disconnect to me. I was like, yeah, he should have probably spotted that. If Matt can spot it, and maybe Matt knows a little bit more about art, being the entrepreneur that he is. But still, I was like, wow, if he can spot it that quick, this dude should have spotted it too. And then the other things I didn't like was Venom. They fixed the vehicles too quick, and the recycled scene at the break with the conveyor belt. And it was funny. Matt's and even Mayhem's puns there was more roll my eyes moment over them versus T-Bob in this episode. So they did start to wear on me at the end, when every little thing was bird, feathers, nest, migrating, everything. I was like, all right, can we drop it, please? Feather brain. Oh gosh, they just overcooked it there. But I don't know. I just, again, like you were saying, the animation and just the pace and the story, that weighed a lot heavier to me than some of these ticks. Which, if this bird was rare or somewhat extinct, how did the computer find it so easily? That was kind of a tick. We talked about the takeoff and landing with Firefly, and then the continuity stuff, like, you know, Matt knowing where exactly the cape and helmet were inside the hut. The agents just showing up without doing like a transport plane scene. And the other thing too was what happened to Hondo. He jumped out of the freaking plane and then he shows up at the end of the episode. I'm like, he was going to look for Scott and T-Bob. Apparently didn't do a very good job, but they came back together with the team at the end of the episode. I was like, okay, I'm glad you're okay, Hondo. Just saw you jump out of a plane. And but that was another good thing I got to add in too, because I just thought about this too. How much Doug was used in this episode, and going back and forth between, you know, Matt and Hondo, and then he was also, I think he's also Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
So he had like 3 different parts in the episode, and, you know, doing the different voices and the way that they recorded these episodes back then, that was some talent right there.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
back and forth. So in the end, I ended up leaving it where it was, my rating, and I gave it a 5. Amazingly. And again, it might be just coming off that, I think I gave the last one a 2.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, there was a lot of the things that I look for now as I'm watching these episodes, that engaged me more than some of the ticks that popped up throughout. So I don't know. This one landed good with me, better than you, I guess. So
This is
let's
yeah.
that kind of wraps up our take. Well, before we go to the poll, did you have anything in there from our script that might have been similar?
I was trying, but I didn't see anything.
I didn't have anything either. So let's go over to the poll and see where we ended after you changed your vote.
Okay.
Say, because I haven't refreshed.
I didn't change it on here. I can't seem to pull it away. It doesn't allow me.
Okay. Well, I'm showing 3 votes for a 5, 4 4s, and 2 3s. So it would be what?
3
3
4s and then 3
and
3s.
3. So basically 3 for everything.
Yeah.
So on average, that's a 4.
I would
If
say
my
yeah.
math is correct. So overall, the people voting tended to agree that it was a better episode. And we had 2 comments.
Yeah, one from Decker. I always liked this episode as a kid. I think it is because Hondo is one of my favorite characters. Plus, I like Floyd Malloy in this episode too. Maybe for one episode, y'all could highlight your favorite episodes for each character. Anyways, glad y'all are recording again and looking forward to more episodes of MASKast. Awesome. You know, that's something we could do as a MASKast chat, is our favorite characters or maybe their abilities or mask capabilities or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, because, you know, again, they don't call every team member each time. And sometimes there's a particular story behind why they're using Rax in this episode, or, you know, they spot him at this laboratory, or, you know, there's that one time where Vanessa is kind of undercover as what were they, in a library or something, you know, and then she finds, it was the one with the where they're looking for the schematics for the pipelines, I think, under the city.
Oh yeah.
And she's kind of undercover.
Yeah.
She's kind of undercover, and then she goes like, Mayhem drops a cord for her, and then she, you know, flies away. So yeah, there's some cool episodes where each agent is highlighted a little bit more. So that would be fun maybe to dig into sometime. And episode featuring Rax, and what's your favorite episode featuring Vanessa and Hondo, and, you know, just kind of go down the line and see And we haven't, we've reviewed a lot of these, 52 of them out of 75. So we might miss some along the way, or maybe that's an episode we do after we complete the series.
Right.
So yeah, that's a great suggestion, Decker. Thank you for that. And we'll tuck that one away and definitely use that in an upcoming podcast, or even an article or something on the site. And then of course Anna, she always chimes in with her review. She says, "This is a really good episode with some great animation. I especially like the close-up animation of some of the vehicles when they transform, the close-up animation of Manta when it drives into the pineapple factory, and the fight scene between Leo. The scene when Floyd crashes and runs a second is also great." Yeah, I did get a chuckle out of that. That was a total, like you said, total wreck scene. And it goes on to say, in addition, I thought Mayhem's line, here's my way of saying aloha, Mask, was really cool. One small drawback is the scene when Matt gets knocked unconscious and nearly falls into the pineapple cutter is very similar. Here it is. Very similar to the scene in the Lepanzer Mystery. But I still thought this episode was good enough to deserve a 5. So that's when I gave it. So cool. We're on the same page.
Yeah.
And yes, Lepanzer Mystery. That is the one with the horses. That's what I was thinking. That was where that scene came from. So she picked it out. She knows the episodes, a lot better than I do. But anyway, thanks as always, Anna, for your comments. And that kind of leads us into our next episode review podcast. And we'll be talking about episode 53, The Patchwork Puzzler. I'm sorry. I have the notes here.
Okay, I don't have them.
And in this one, Venom steals a Civil War era quilt that contains a secret message to finding buried treasure at the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C., not too far from you. So that I like the sound of that one, adding in some history and Venom back to doing what they do a lot of and trying to get a quick buck to fund their organization. But this is I'm crossing my fingers over this one. It sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it sounds interesting to me. Yeah.
So that's going to about do it. We have reviewed the Royal Cape Caper. Wyatt gave it a 3. I gave it a 5 out of 5. So one of those that is rare that I rate it higher than you. You're usually a lot more kind, and for some reason, like I was saying, some of the things that bothered you more were more ticks for me. So this was fun. We need to do this again sometime.
A little bit more often. Yes.
Right. So
like
anyway,
follow us on our other entities, whether it's Rediscover the 80s, Memory Jogger, Rankum. But I said it over there. We had a schedule intended. It just happened to fly out the window. Just life again. It seems to be life. We give it that blame, but we've said before.
it's the truth.
It is the truth. We're both working people. This is a hobby. We both have our own sets of kids. So just whenever we can get the free time to get into our quote unquote studio, we love to do it. So we're trying to get on a better schedule and hope to be more regular on that. But this has been great. Like you said, I always have fun with these. And I really miss MASKast. It's been a little too long. And
It has. Yeah.
but yeah, I want to thank you all again. Thank you for watching and listening to us. And we'll see you again next time on MASKast.
And thank you, YouTube viewers, who watched us get our feet wet again. I felt like there was a lot of, I don't know. I like to think I'm a pretty good reader, and my notes were not very readable.
I find my
readable.
notes that way at times. I know what I'm doing, but I don't know how you watch. But me, a 20-minute episode turns into an hour notes. So I will watch it for what seems to be only about 6 or 7 lines, and I will type out almost verbatim what they say. And I'm typing it really quick because I know that my time, that hour long to watch it, is typically broken up. So I might get 15 minutes and it's,
Yeah.
honey, okay, I'll see you next time. Might be 2 weeks later before I get to the next 15 minutes of it. So
Yeah.
that's how it ends up with me. I don't know about you.
I kind of do the same. I don't try to do everything word for word, and I try to abbreviate or condense like what's happening on the screen, and sometimes even what they say if it's not like pertinent information to the episode, these jokes and stuff. So I try to shorten that a little bit, but I'm the same way. I'll watch a few lines. I usually try to watch the episode all the way through, and then I'll go back and do my notes and chop it up, kind of like you said, 6 or 7 lines at a time, or maybe even if it's a short scene, a whole scene. And that's how I separate it. So if there's a scene, where they're in Thunderhawk and talking, that's one paragraph, and then they jump to the hut, and then I type what's going on there, and that's one paragraph, and then that's how I break up my notes, and just by scene,
Mhm.
more than like back and forth between characters and stuff. But I try to keep the scenes together. That helps me kind of think about what's happening in the action too as we're talking it out. But it's fun. There's a little insight into how we how we do the notes on this show. And then going back, I don't know. Sometimes if we make a mistake or goof up or say a lot of ums or uhs or likes or
Mhm.
whatever, or if the audio is crap, that's where I try to throw in the actual audio from the episode to kind of cover that up. So there's a little insight into how I how I produce the podcast.
Right.
If you're on YouTube and if you've never listened to the podcast, that's I take a lot of pride in putting in those clips and making everything kind of fit together for MASKast on these episode reviews. But there's no real like rhyme or reason to where I throw it in. It's usually more or less, okay, we've been talking for a while, let's put in a clip. Or if there's some bad audio or something, or we missed something that was being said or needs to be added in there, that's where I try to plop that in.
Right.
But it's fun. And then I like to pull in some of the music at the beginning and stuff too, when you first, let's start the MASKast, and I'll fade in with that music that we first hear in the episode. And sometimes throughout too, if we get a different theme, or if we talk about the music specifically in the episode, we heard that military theme that we both like here, and you throw that in there with some of the audio. But anyway, that's it's fun, and I do enjoy these, even though we haven't been we've taken a bit of a break, but they're fun to put together.
Oh yeah.
I wish I was a full-time audio engineer. That would be really fun. And here's a little teaser for Memory Jogger. We're going to do the next one is going to be on our radio history and career. And one of the things I wanted to ask you was, do you ever, or did you ever have to actually cut and splice like a reel to reel or anything
Thankfully,
like that?
no. I know the concept. I've studied it, but thankfully, I've never had to do it. I think you did have to do it in college, right?
I did. I might have. I was thinking if I did it actually at WCPA for something, but yeah, I know we had to do it with like a razor blade, and uh, basically we all got a track of our professor talking out something, and he purposely added in like whatever, whoops, sorry, and you had to take all of that crap out and make it one continuous, piece of audio. And that was, you get the razor blade out, and you gotta jog the reel to reel at the right spot, and oh my gosh, it was so much. You take a little piece of tape and tape it together. I mean, we've all done it with like a cassette before, but this is like on a larger scale at least.
Wow, I think I was
But
just
gosh,
re-recorded.
I mean, it was more or less for the fun of it, because we did have digital software then. To do that. It was kind of the dawn of the digital age anyway. And we were just a little student station. So a lot of the equipment was basically given to us from the bigger station that was on campus. So we didn't have too much to work with, but just, thinking about that and how they had to do it back in the day, and how easy it is for me to take our audio and cut out the mistakes and everything, the little pauses and stuff, and to make it nice, clean, crisp, and have some continuity. That's fun, man. It's fun to me. I don't know. I just wish I could do that more, full time, or even as a part-time job. I don't know. I like when I did the music videos.
Yeah.
I shortened several songs from 3.5 minutes to 2 minutes. And it kills me now to hear some podcasts open with their intro music, and it's really choppy, and they're not cutting it. They're trying to shorten the song, but they're not cutting it at the right spot. And it just, it bugs me half to death.
Oh.
And I'm like,
getting off on a whole different freaking rabbit trail, because okay, really, really quick. Our old WCPA, which is now owned by Seven Mountains. I listened to it quite a bit this last trip home.
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow. Terrible, and terrible. Just the automation itself, it would stop. There'd be 2 seconds of dead air. And when Carl was around, he'd be screaming at you on the phone already, at least to me. And it was dead. Now it's okay, because, well, it's the computer. What are you going to do? And I remember that was non-negotiable. You had to keep on it. You had to go, click,
Had to be tight.
Find it. Oh man, it was
Gotta
just
be tighter, man, tighter. Yeah.
So
yeah, it's different when you got a human back there and you can actually control that stuff, versus you're waiting to hear a tone, or however the automation picks up to go to the next song, and you don't get that true fading in and out. And I even I even hear it now on the local radio stations, that they'll even chop a song pretty short, and it's really abrupt. It's, maybe it's a song that's fading out, but it ends cold, and you're right into the next song. You're right into a commercial. I'm like, oh, that's just awful. We got an ear. We got more of an ear for radio than a lot of people do. And I don't know, just stuff like that. And having gone through the process of, in the experience of working at a station, and a fully manual type station is a lot different, and you pick up a lot more things. So anyway, we'll save that for the memory jogger coming up. There's a little teaser over on the go over the Rediscover the 80s channel and check that out coming up. So, well, we will say goodbye. Thank you again, YouTubers, for sticking with us through this episode. It's been a little bit long, but we appreciate you following us, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.
See ya.